Welcome, everyone. Today's program is sponsored by the Plant Initiative, and we will be joined by Alessandra Viola, who is co-author with Stefano Mancuso of Brilliant Green, The Surprising History and Science of Plant Intelligence, and author of Flower Power, Plants and Their Rights, with moderator Paul Moss. My name is Laura Starfy, and I'm a board member with the Plant Initiative. I'm very excited to introduce Alessandra and Paul to start off our 1-hour program. Alessandra Viola is a writer and science journalist, television producer, and author and presenter of science TV shows aired on national Italian television. Alessandra holds a PhD in science communication, as well as a PhD in agriculture and environmental sciences. She's been awarded many prizes for her work, including Best Scientific Journalist of the Year by the Armenice Harvard Foundation, and she's currently contract professor of environmental communication at the Università San Raffaele of Milan, Italy. Paul Moss is the executive director and co-founder of the Plant Initiative. He has degrees in biology, agronomy, and marketing, and is currently a PhD candidate in the Department of Geography, Environment, and Science at the University of Minnesota. Paul has a particular interest in the ethical treatment of plants. We'll have about an hour for this program. We'll start with about a half an hour of conversation between Alessandra and Paul. And for the remainder of the program, Alessandra will be responding to questions posed by you that will be presented as Paul selects from the questions that are posted in the Zoom chat. So if you have a question that you'd like Paul to ask Alessandra, please post this in the chat that's at the bottom of your screen. We are recording today's conversation, and it will be posted on the Plant Initiative's YouTube channel, and we'll send a link to everyone who registered for the program. So with that, I will turn it over to Paul.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. Really great to be here. And I'm very, very pleased to be having this conversation with Alessandra today. I've had the opportunity to read her books, and I think she will have a lot of really interesting things to say. So first of all, Alessandra, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about how you've come to be particularly interested in plants and the well-being of plants.
Well, hi, everybody, and thank you to the Plant Initiative for this invitation. Nice to meet you all. Like many people, I haven't always had a green thumb. Actually, I had a black thumb. I used to kill every plant that I had, much to my despair. And then one day I became a science communicator, and I started my PhD in environmental humanities, and I discovered how incredible plants are, and how incredible abilities they have. They know how to, communicate, they learn, they have memory, they are intelligent, they make decisions. So it was impossible not to be passionate about plants. And little by little, I stopped killing plants. I stopped being a plant serial killer. And I started doing the only thing we really have to do in order not to kill plants. And maybe this is, a good advice for some of you. You only have to look at them, and this is enough, to let them be well and and progress.
Great. Well, what would you say you most appreciate about plants?
Well, as everybody, in my opinion, at least, I think I have to be grateful to them for the air I breathe, for the food I eat, for this desk that is made of wood, and all is made for free, without asking anything in return. So how can you not love similar living being, I would ask. But there are also other things that I really appreciate about plants. For example, that there is no hierarchy among them. In plant world, everyone is important. They can compete like all living beings, but they can also collaborate. They can help each other. And I also love that they are beautiful. You know, they when you add a plant in a room, you always add a touch of elegance, of beauty. And I absolutely love the fact that with plants come animals. I have a house in the countryside and have been planting trees for years. And when the trees began to, to settle in and grow, the animal arrives. So plants bring life, and this is beautiful.
Yes, thank you. You know, in your writings, you've talked quite a bit about plants being intelligent. And I think that's a concept that's hard for a lot of people to understand or accept. How would you explain it, that plants are intelligent? What does plant intelligence mean to you?
Well, there are many definitions of intelligence, even for human beings. There is, for example, logical, mathematical, emotional, spatial, etc. No? When we think of intelligence, we all believe we know what it is, but this is not the case at all. And just as among human beings, everyone has its own intelligence, so it is in other living beings. Then, first of all, we have to agree on the definition. And in Brilliant Green, the book Laura mentioned before, we have chosen the broadest definition, the broadest possible definition, that is the evolutionary one. The intelligence is the ability to solve problem. And according to this definition, intelligence is a capacity that is inherent to life and could not be otherwise, because life is complicated. Surviving is a daily challenge for every living being, and you cannot imagine a less intelligent living being. And how could he survive? It would have died out a long time ago. Anyways, when we published the book, it was 2013, and it was almost a scandal in the scientific world. And even, the scientific magazine Nature published an editorial to say that it disagreed with those who claim that plants are intelligent. Today, 10 years later, of course, plants' intelligence is an established fact somehow, though some still struggle to call it that way. And after all, it is not at all a new discovery. The first to discover and write that roots are intelligent was Charles Darwin. It was the end of 19th century. We're still here debating,
Yeah. Here's another question that people often ask, and I'm interested in what you think, and you talk about a little bit in your book, but do you feel that plants can feel pain?
I believe this is a well-posed question, Paul. Thank you. Because do I know that plants can feel pain? No, nobody knows. But do I feel that plants can feel pain? Yes, I feel that they can. Pain, is an evolutionary mechanism. It is used to recognize behaviors that are harmful or potentially harmful to our survival and integrity, and to escape or move away from possible harm. So now, as in the case of the intelligence, we all believe we know what pain is, but you know what? We don't. A scientific paper a few years ago counted how many different medical definitions there are. There are over 100. So my pain will never be the same as yours. Pain is completely a subjective experience. So how can we believe we can understand the pain of animals, which are so different from us? This is the usual anthropocentric approach that comes into play, the human being as the measure of all things. Plants are even more different than animals, and they cannot move. They cannot escape from pain. So when you think about this, you say, well, evolution would have been ferocious to make him feel pain similar to what we feel, and don't leave them the possibility to escape. However, if pain is an evolutionary mechanism, why should they not experience it? I mean, it's a very open topic. In the last few years, much evidence suggested otherwise, probably that they can feel something. For example, plants, we very well know that plants immediately repair any breakage, they heal themselves. A study of the University of Madison in Wisconsin has demonstrated, for example, that using phosphorescent tracers, that when a leaf is eaten, there is a signal that starts very quickly and reaches the other parts of the plant. It's a wave of calcium ions. And you say, okay, well, what kind of information is this? Now, it's very important because it is the fastest signal that propagates in the plant body. And even in many animals, and including humans, the pain signal is carried by a wave of calcium ions. But we actually call it a pain signal only in animals and human beings. When it comes to plants, we still call it a calcium ion wave. It makes a big difference when you choose some terms. And I believe that language has a fundamental role, fundamental importance in this moment when we start to discover plant words. Well, it's too little to say that plants can suffer, of course, but the point is that we cannot say that they are not suffering. And this entails that we need to adopt the precautionary principle. To me, it's very, very clear. The precautionary principle is the one according to which, if my action can damage another living being or, for example, an ecosystem, I must abstain from this. It's not my idea, it's the United Nations say so. It's the same principle whereby, for example, if you have expired ham in the fridge, it is better to refrain from eating it, because you never know. It looks good, but it might hurt you. It's the same with plants. They don't seem to suffer because they don't cry or scream, but you never know. And in fact, to tell the truth, recently an Israeli study demonstrates that they scream. They make sounds when they are under stress or damaged. These sounds are emitted in a frequency that we cannot hear, but some insects certainly can. So why do they do this? Why do plants do this? We don't know. And what if they were cries of pain? Of course, it would be shocking, but we cannot simply rule it out for this reason. This is my opinion.
Yeah, well, they do have kind of their own languages, as you point out. They could use sound, but also, chemical signals of all types and ways of, so to me, it seems like it's evolutionary adaptive that they would feel pain because it allows them to, create these compounds in their body to make them less appealing to predators and to, even though they can't physically escape, they can deter through various chemical mechanisms some of the predation that might occur to them. So it still makes sense to me that they could feel pain, but I really like the way that you presented it. One of the things you brought up in your recent book, which everyone, I realize it's in Italian, but you can go to Alessandra's academia.edu page and download a PDF in Italian and translate it through Google Translate if you want to read it in English at this point, and hopefully at some point it will be in English. But you wrote a whole book on plant rights, and I'm really interested in some of the reasons why you feel that plants should have rights, or we should recognize the rights of plants.
Mm. Thank you for this question. And I would like to, to answer with a question. What is the reason humans have rights? We think we know. We all think we know, but this is not the case again. I want to tell you a very short story. In 1947, when United Nations, after all the atrocities of the Second World War, decided that we needed a charter of human rights, that it would, important to have such a document. They started kind of a survey, and about 100 of politicians, philosophers, representative of various religions, even artists were consulted. And one of the questions was, why do human beings have rights? And what are these rights? And the funny thing is that everyone was convinced that human beings had rights, but it was impossible to agree on why they have them. In fact, the declaration begins like this in the preamble, saying that humans have rights. And, that's all. In the same way, I say, if we have them, and if we recognize that animals also have them, plants must have them too. And if someone is convinced that this is not the case, he or she must explain where the boundary lies between those who have rights and those who don't, and who put it there, for which reason. And I looked for 2.5 years for that border, and couldn't find it. I mean, it isn't there in nature. It is only in our mind.
Wow. That's really interesting. So if plants do have rights, what does it mean for them to have rights? What kind of rights do they have?
Well, I tried to write this kind of, declaration on plant rights.
And that's in your book. That's in your book, Flower Power.
Yeah, so far we had a few attempts to recognize vegetal rights, for example, to trees, to some herbs, but they have been, I would say, a bit naive, a bit new age, and jurisprudence is very attentive to form and wording. All declaration, the one of the rights of the child, the Declaration of Human Rights, the rights of animals, they all have the same basic formulation. And this means that jurisprudence need and appreciate that particular formulation. So I tried to write a declaration, not because I wanted, to be solemn or to do something strange, but just because it is the type of formulation that is needed for this. And we have a clear indication, no exception should be made for plants, because we tend to make always exceptions for plants. This is pain for humans and animals, yeah, but not for plants. For plants is a wave of iron, calcium, ions, etc. It's a usual mechanism for human beings. So what I wrote is just a hypothesis, of course. It was just to understand if the structure of the other Declaration of Rights could be adopted for plants, and it's great. It works very, very good. And I make no claim that the rights I have identified, that are 9, I believe, are the only ones. or are the good ones? It's just a platform. I mean, it's a starting point. I just wanted to, to start a debate as soon as possible. And I hope
Do you feel that the debate has started? Do you think that it did start a debate, or are people reacting to it, or how are they reacting to it?
Well, to be honest, there has been more in the press than among ordinary people, more in the academia than in the public. But my hope is that with an English edition of the book and with meeting like this, I'm doing a lot. Thank you again, Paul. This idea that it is presented to the world for the first time. So you also have to lead people, to get used to this idea, will gain much more visibility and will start. We were talking about this before. When I present this idea to people, usually there is somebody that laughs. So it's normal. It's very, it happened often. And at the very beginning, I was a bit upset because I studied and I worked very hard on this topic, and I really believe in what I wrote. And these people laughing was a bit annoying. But then I thought that, you have to think that a century ago, people were amused, were laughing, even when they were told that women could vote, for example, or being a judge or a soldier or other profession considered masculine. In every era, we have taught that rights were those that were recognized. And that were recognized in that particular moment. We told that African descendants who were slaves, if they were slaves, there were valid reasons. We were, white people was convinced somehow that we thought that if women were considered inferior, there were scientific reasons because they could have, probably a smaller brain. But it was only the convenience of the white male, usually, who could use this convention to bully somehow other creature. So the circle of our moral consideration widens over time. And I believe this is the time to include plants.
Why is this the time to include plants? What are some factors that are contributing to that being a good time?
Well, I wouldn't say that is for an ethical question, because we are not really very ethical beings. It's because we need it. It's because this is the only possible green revolution, I would say, to change the way we enter in a new relation with other living beings. It's the only green revolution we can do at zero cost and very quickly, and it will change everything if you think about it.
What kind of things would change, do you think, if plants had rights, were recognized to have rights? Just an example, maybe.
Maybe intensive agriculture. We will have to, to give a second thought about this. Or, for example, deforestation, or even food waste. Because when you waste food, you are wasting lives. So if you are really aware of this, I started, it very often happens to me to speak with schools and children, and also at the university. When I tell them that fruits and vegetables, they breathe, even when they are not anymore attached to the plants, they continue to breathe when they are in the supermarket, they breathe when they are in the frigo, or even when you eat them, say, no, it's shocking. when you think about this. But it's a new perspective that is opening.
Has it changed the way that you live personally when you think about plants in this way?
Oh, yes, definitely. For example, I became vegetarian. That is not really, there's this joke that says, I'm not vegetarian because I love animals. I'm vegetarian because I hate plants. But I changed my diet after being so concerned with plant rights, because it seems counterintuitive, but it is the best way to help the planet, because eating plants reduce the global amount of plants that are eaten. If I eat a steak,
Why is that? Why is that?
if I eat a steak, for example, say 1 kilo of meat, it means that I eat kind of 1,500 kilos of vegetables. Because the cow, to grow that kilogram of meat, have eaten plants for years. Every animal has fed on plants, also fish. So this is why eating plants directly and not plants transformed into meats is much more convenient for the entire planet and for well-being. So yes, it changed my life somehow.
Wow, interesting. How would you, looking at the broader society, how would you, what kind of things might address what is the lack of empathy for the plant world? What kind of factors might move people in the direction to have more empathy for plants?
Well, the lack of empathy is really a big problem, because we never feel we can, enter in the shoe of the plant somehow. But I believe that empathy is something innate, but that can also be somehow cultivated. I don't know how to say.
How do you cultivate empathy?
Because plants, we can do this thinking that plants are so incredibly talented, as science is demonstrating right now. So if you think that they can communicate, if you think that they can hear, for example, or they can see, or they have all the 5 senses we have, and don't you feel that you are, in presence of something with which you can, enter in a relationship? When I studied the way that plants can intercept the light, and the hypothesis that said, for example, that plants can even see, what's the term?
Shapes?
Yeah, the shapes of the things, or the living beings. So if this really possible, the next time you look at a plant, don't you feel like, you are looking at a plant and the plant is returning your look? Isn't it, we for years we have had these fantasies about Martians, for example, green aliens coming, with strange bodies, with many eyes, etc., coming for another planet. But probably Martians are here. They are green. They have thousands of eyes all over the green leaves. And they are very different. They speak another language, but they are all already here.
That's interesting. So in a way, they're different than us, but in a way that maybe by recognizing how we're similar to them, it might make people feel more of a connection to plants.
Definitely. Yeah, this is my idea, my opinion.
Wow.
And also we might think how much we have to be grateful to them. we owe them so much.
So just a sense of reciprocity, since we're taking from them, and then what are we giving back to them?
Mhm.
It's not just a one-way thing, one-way relationship. How can plants, how can you actually, how would it work for plants to express their rights or claim their rights if they can't represent themselves? Do you have any ideas how that could happen?
Oh, yes. Is my connection working?
Yeah, it's good. We hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Because I can see you anymore. Okay, we already have this kind of legal instrument. This is the one of the representation. We use this for children already, and for sick people when you cannot, bring your case to court. I will give you an example. In Ecuador, for example, where the nature rights are recognized in Constitution, the Vilcabamba River has already won a trial against its polluters, thanks to the presence of representatives who brought its case to the court. And we already use this instrument, so you don't have to, to invent or to study something different, because again, we don't have to make an exception for plants. We have to use the instrument we already have. And in the case of Ecuadorian law, for example, the representative must bear all legal costs. And then if he or she wins the case, he is reimbursed, and the compensation does not go to him or to her, but to the ecosystem to restore it. And it's a huge difference, because in Europe, for example, if a river is polluted, only those who suffer damage from this pollution can sue the polluter. And if they win, that is not very often the case, they take the money and the river remains polluted. So environmental rights make a big difference.
Oh, great. Well, thanks. At this point, let me start to take some of the questions from the attendees. A lot of people have been posting things. I'll just start with this one. And I'm not sure, this is a question about the work of Clyde Baxter, who invented the lie detector test. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It was written up in like Secret Life of Plants. If it's something you're not familiar with, that's okay. It's just, it was very controversial at the time, because he was claiming that plants could feel pain by the way that they responded on to lie detectors. But anyway,
it was the electric.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was something in the 60s or in the 70s.
Yeah, right,
it?
right,
Okay.
right. A long time ago.
Yeah.
Was there anything that ever was that research ever to your knowledge ever repeated or verified or?
Well, no, that kind of research is, as much as I know, have never been, they have probably been repeated, but they didn't give the same results. That it was not scientific. But something we have to say about plants is that the scientific research is at the very beginning in this field. We studied a bit more animals, but we don't really know how plants work. So sometimes it's also an excuse to say, oh, science doesn't say that plant can feel pain, for example. There is a big space where we can still make some hypotheses. That one was really interesting, but the
Okay.
proof we now have about pain are of different kind, but we still have proofs that say that plants can potentially feel pain.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go to the next question that was posted here. Having trouble figuring out how to move through the chat without messing stuff up. Okay, this is about hang on a second. If we humans decided about plant rights, where, when, whom, is that not the same problem if we say that they do not? In other words, is it anthropocentric or human oriented if people decide on what plant rights are?
Yes, this is a very interesting question. Yes, of course, is anthropocentric. We cannot, decide by ourselves, or can we? I mean, didn't we do the same with animals? So why are we asking the question for plants? Because again, we are making an exception.
Mm-hmm.
We adults decided what kind of rights a child must have. So why can't we decide? Of course, we are intelligent beings, so we will choose rights that make sense. Probably plants have the right to live or to reproduce in a natural way. This kind of rights, I mean, no, probably they don't have the right to, I don't know, so, some strange right. I mean,
So you're saying that it's a normal thing in terms of the way we look at rights for any beings, animals or other people. It's just part of that process.
yes.
It's a human process. Here's another question. This attendee recently bought a book about plant spirit medicine, and there seems to be a branch of alternative medicine that believes plants have spirits. We know many indigenous cultures also hold these beliefs. What do you think? And they said this may be a scandalous question.
It's not a scandalous question. It's very interesting. I really believe that indigenous people have managed somehow to protect a part of knowledge that we have lost. So we might, be very grateful to them for this. Their perspective are critical today. We understood that what seemed backwardness to us was instead another way of being in the world, which brought with it a great wisdom. We tried to exploit it, of course, and plunder it, but they have partly managed to conserve it. And today we need this kind of wisdom to understand nature in a deeper way. And so, yes, I believe we have to look at indigenous culture as we have always done, by the way, to see if they have found something that we still, with science, are not able to find, to approach.
Thank you. Another question is, could plant rights be included in a larger ecosystem or watershed rights?
Oh, again, could
plant rights, when you're thinking, could you advocate for plant rights or include plant rights when you're just working to protect the rights of like a larger ecosystem or a watershed? Does that also encompass, in a way, plant rights?
Yes, of course, but I have a question. I have a question again. What why do we recognize the rights of child, the rights of human beings, and not, the rights of humanity or the rights of childhood? We really need to protect every single being. This is why we have, recognized the right of the children. Every children has rights, and in my opinion, it's very important that the nature rights and ecosystem rights have started to be recognized all over the world. I mentioned before Ecuador and also Bolivia. There are ecosystems all over the world right now, from India to New Zealand, from Pennsylvania to Spain. But the discussion about plant rights still is missing. And we think that when we plants.
You froze up for a sec.
Oh, sorry. We think that talking about nature includes automatically plants, but this is not the case. If you do something a bit, vague, does it sound in English?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's difficult to defend this kind of rights. So you really need to defend every single plant. And in fact, when you talk about ecosystem, you have to remember that animals more or less are defended by rights in many places, and only plants are still without any umbrella, any right guarantee.
Great, thank you. Next question, I'll read it. I'm curious if there has been any study where two plants were given the same amount of food and light, but placed in two different spaces or homes. In one home, one plant was among people that were stressed, negative, or fearful, and the other home, the plant was among happy, peaceful people. How did it affect the plant's growth? So if you're aware of any kind of research like that.
This reminds me a video I saw that was made, I believe, from IKEA. We call it IKEA in Italy. That's Sweden, furniture, the place where you can, build your own furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this video where two plants were put into transparent boxes, apparently identical plants, or maybe also clones. And the plants were given the same amount of food and water and light, etc. And in one, people was asked to say nice thing, or how nice you are, or thank you for being here, I very much like you, etc. And in the other plant was given something bad, like, oh, you are so ugly, you really are unuseful, etc. And at the end of this experiment, that I must say, I believe was not, scientifically made, but it was really, impressive to see that the plant that was insulted all the time was a lot less beautiful than the other one. It was really,
interesting.
You can find it online somehow, maybe Googling something, you will find it.
Thank you. Here's one that's more of a comment, if you might want to reflect on this. This is, it says, rights language is connected to a particular ethical theory, which is probably not the easiest or most appropriate to apply in the case of plants. It has created problems in its use of animal ethics, particularly around the problem of rights requiring universal application, that is, laying a duty upon moral agents to protect each and every rights holder. I'm not, if you understand it, I think, Laura, could you explain this one a little bit? Do you see the comment?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say about this one.
What could I say?
Well,
It's
in other words, they're
probably
saying why, in terms of, I guess the broader question is, in terms of improving the treatment of plants, why is rights the best mechanism to do that? Because you could do it by like increasing care, empathy, or you can do it by recognizing relationality. So why rights as a technique? Because there's other baggage with rights. I think that's kind of what they're trying to say.
Yeah, this is also a very interesting comment. Another question for you. So why we need rights to protect people and to protect animals, and why shouldn't we not need rights to protect plants? So why do we need an exception for plants? If rights are the instrument that from centuries we used to protect people or beings that have been exploited, usually. You know, we approved the right of children after the First World War, after all the atrocities, and rights of humans, of human beings after the Second World War, and rights of animals when we discovered the atrocities of you know, intensive what's the name, breeding. Yeah, so now we know how intensive agriculture is working and how many damages also is doing to our planet. So why wouldn't we adopt the same instrument? But I have to say that even if I really appreciate the work they did, because it was very, very important, the animal rights movement didn't help us. The animal struggle for rights was based on the idea that animals can suffer like we do. And of course, you cannot use the same paradigm as we already said for plants. We still don't know if they suffer. I still am not convinced at all that pain might be, you know, the border or the characteristic to give somebody rights. But what we can really be thankful to animal movement for is the incredible work they did, and incredible kind of people that participated with all their emotional, you know, force to this kind of struggle. And I very much hope that they will join plant right initiative and plant right cause to help, because they already know how to do. We really need it.
I agree with you. I think that if there could be more collaboration between people that are promoting animal rights and concern for plants, that would be helpful. Here's the next question. How do you think that we can change the story and narrative of plants as being thought of as not sentient or intelligent? So what needs to shift so that people will see plants as being sentient and intelligent? And the question says that there's science available, but even in scientific circles, it can be denied.
Well, what can we do? Well, you all that are looking at this, you know, seminar, you're participating, you are doing the biggest job. You are informing yourself. You are, you know, trying to open your mind. You are asking questions to see if new ideas can be useful, can be accepted, can be shared. So the most important thing we can do is to read, to study plants, to observe them, to share with them, to create a new way to interact with them. And I believe that's all. We really need to shift to a new paradigm. This is something that is done step by step, you know, talking and sharing and a webinar at a time.
Thank
And the
you.
book.
The next is a comment, and it's saying, in our Indian culture, meaning East India, I believe, we show empathy towards plants by giving respect or worshiping the plants. In our traditional functions like marriage, Namkaran ceremony, puja ceremony, even our every funeral ceremony, we have plants dedicated for ceremony.
Yeah, I believe this is great. I believe this is great, and I believe that all this kind of this kind of traditional ways to, you know, to interact with plants carry an experience we have lost probably at the beginning of the scientific revolution, when we started to think that everything must be measurable, and you know that you could have a measure of anything, and if you cannot measure it, it doesn't exist. And this is wrong. I mean, this, of course, this have led us to incredible scientific and technological development. But now we are discovering that we have left something behind. We have left something we can feel, we can, you know, smell, I don't know, something that is not strictly measurable. This is why I always share the screen with a plant that is participating to the discussion. And I'm not afraid, you know, when somebody look at this and say, oh, she's a bit weird, you know. It's this living being as an object. No, as me as an owner, I can take this and throw it out without any concern. If this is the normality, I'm very happy to be considered a bit weird.
I think it's important to make change for people to do things differently. If everyone just does things the traditional way, then change doesn't occur. So I feel you've been brave and putting yourself out there with this. So here's the next comment. Really, we tend to have empathy for that which we like. We each like different things, but in a group of people, there will always be those who are attracted to certain plants for which they connect empathically, particularly when we are not afraid of expressing ourselves freely, not being afraid to express what we feel openly.
Oh, I very much like this comment. I didn't get if there is a question, but
no, it's just
it's
a
a
comment.
comment. Yeah, it's very important when you can feel empathy for a plant. This says something beautiful of you, not of the plant. This says that you are a very sensible person, and that you are able to, you know, not to stop to the appearance, the face or the body. You are a person that is capable to look inside somehow, to the capacity that the living being that you have in front has. And every plant can be, you know, nice or bad. We know that there are plants generous, there are plants that are hackers, there are thieves among plants, honest and not honest plants. So you don't really always have to like a plant. Nature is not always good or kind. you just, if you enter in a relationship, you will know, or you have to try to understand if that plant is good for you. Every plant, it's good if you like one plant and you dislike another one. I feel it's normal.
I'll just ask one last question, then we'll start to wrap up, and I'll ask if you have any final things you want to say. And it gets at what you were just saying right now about, someone asked about invasive species that are killing our native plants. If you have any thoughts about that kind of situation.
Yes, I do. What's the name of these plants again in English?
Invasive species?
Invasive. Okay. Well, I believe that, plants have always traveled all over the world. In millions of years, they have made incredible trips all around the countries, the nations, etc. So thinking about invasive species, it brings the idea that we can choose the plants that can live or not in a specific place. So contrary of many, I'm feeling tired, so I'm forgetting words. So we don't know enough about nature to believe that we can say what plant can live here and which one cannot. We really need to have more plants everywhere. So if we have plants that can thrive and survive better than others, we have to thankfully open the doors to them. I know many people will disagree, but this is my opinion. We really need a lot of green, a lot. And with climate changes, we will need always more. So what we need is species that can adapt, that can grow fast, that can, this will probably change, the shape or the panorama, or those are not the very important things. The important things is climate, is the air we breathe, is the.
Well, thank you so much. We're out of time. I know Laura's going to say a couple closing remarks, but thank you so much. There were so many more questions we didn't get to, but anyway, it was an amazing conversation, and just really so grateful for you to participate. Laura?
Yes, thank you so much. And I know there were multiple people who are very interested in seeing your book Flower Power in English. So very much hoping that it might be a possibility soon.
Finger crossed.
I want to thank you both so much, Alessandra and Paul. This has been such an interesting and wide-ranging conversation. There are many people in this chat saying that it has opened up avenues of thought for them. Thank you also to all of those of you in the audience for sharing all of your questions and stimulating such great conversation. I'd just like to say, if you want to support these kinds of programs, this is hosted by the Plant Initiative, and we're always appreciative of donations through the website, which is plantinitiative.org. I'll just put that in the chat. We'd appreciate it just to continue to put on these kinds of events. And this program has been one in a series of these events about human-plant connections. We're planning additional programs in 2024. We hope that you join us for those as well. So thank you so much for attending today, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.